The Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish people who are hosting this historic event. J'aimerais bien remercier tous les chefs, les conseillers et surtout le chef commissaire de la Commission des impôts et taxes des Premières Nations, Manny Jules. Je pense que Manny est là. I want to thank Manny Jules, the First Nations chiefs and councillors who are here today for bringing forward this historic proposal and giving me the privilege to endorse and firmly commit to implementing it. Today, we will introduce our commitment to honor Manny Jules' proposal for a First Nations resource charge. This is a historic change in how First Nations governments fund their operations by allowing them to collect directly the revenues from resource projects that happen on their lands and having the federal government cede tax room for them to do it. Je vais juste résumer le problème qu'on essaie de résoudre. Depuis des centaines d'années, des Premières Nations souffrent d'un système colonial brisé qui retire le pouvoir de à leur communauté pour le placer entre les mains des politiciens à Ottawa. La loi sur les Indiens confie l'ensemble des terres et de l'argent des réserves au gouvernement fédéral. Ce n'est pas juste. Cela signifie que les Premières Nations doivent se rendre à Ottawa pour réclamer leurs recettes fiscales provenant des projets d'exploitation des ressources naturelles sur leur territoire. Ce système obsolète place le pouvoir entre les mains des bureaucrates, des politiciens et des lobbyistes, et non entre celles des Premières Nations. Le résultat direct de cette approche « Ottawa, c'est tout » a été la pauvreté, des infrastructures et des logements inférieurs aux normes et de l'eau potable insalubre et le désespoir. Les conservateurs ont écouté les Premières Nations et aujourd'hui, nous annonçons le soutien à une redevance facultative sur les ressources des Premières Nations qui permet aux Premières Nations de reprendre le contrôle de leurs ressources et de leur argent. Il s'agit d'une solution proposée par les Premières Nations à un problème créé à Ottawa. Les Premières Nations et la Commission de la fiscalité des Premières Nations ont élaboré le plan, l'ont présenté aux conservateurs et nous l'avons accepté. Ce nouveau modèle facultatif simplifiera les négociations entre les sociétés d'exploitation des ressources et les Premières Nations. En redonnant aux Premières Nations le contrôle de leur argent et en leur permettant de faire leur propre argent des ressources sur leurs terres. On va retirer le pouvoir d'Ottawa, retirer les pouvoirs des bureaucrates et des politiciens et le redonner aux chefs des Premières Nations dans les communautés. Ça veut dire moins de bureaucratie, plus de chèques de paie, plus de services sociaux et plus d'opportunités pour les Premières Nations. Moi, je veux un gouvernement plus petit à Ottawa pour des gens plus grands à travers le pays, surtout des Premières Nations qui reprendront le contrôle de leur vie. Le redevance sur les ressources des Premières Nations cède de l'espace fiscal fédéral, de sorte que les communautés n'auront plus à envoyer tous leurs revenus à Ottawa pour les réclamer par la suite. Elle rendra également les projets d'exploitation des ressources plus attrayants pour les Premières Nations, de sorte qu'ils seront plus susceptibles d'être mis en œuvre. Je m'engage à abroger les lois anti-ressources radicales de Justin Trudeau afin de donner rapidement le feu vert aux bons projets pour que les Premières Nations et tous les Canadiens ramènent des chèques de paie plus grands. C'est ça le gros bon sens. Thank you very much for hosting me today on these your ancestral lands. And thank you very much to the great Manny Jules for having brought together such a distinguished group of First Nations people to confirm and consecrate the proposal that you have developed over so many years. Today is a historic moment where, for the first time, a federal leader commits to ceding federal tax room to First Nations governments so that they can take back control of their money. This is consistent with the achievement of Manny's father, Clarence Jules, who successfully convinced the Mulroney government to allow First Nations reserves to collect their own property taxes. Now we are going to take that further by allowing First Nations to collect federal corporate taxes. For hundreds of years, First Nations have suffered under a broken colonial system that takes power away from their communities and places it in the hands of politicians in Ottawa. The racist and unfair Indian Act hands over all reserve land and money to the federal government. This means that First Nations have to go to Ottawa to ask for their tax revenues collected from resources on their land. This outdated system puts power in the hands of bureaucrats, politicians, and lobbyists, not First Nations. The direct result of the Ottawa Knows Best approach has been poverty, substandard infrastructure and housing, and unsafe drinking water and despair. The solution is the one that the great Manny Jules has presented with the guidance of these leaders here today. And we have listened, and it is the First Nations resource charge. This is a First Nations-led solution to a made-in-Ottawa problem. First Nations and the First Nations Tax Commission developed the plan, brought it to Conservatives, and today I announce that we have accepted it. This optional model, and it is optional, so any First Nation that chooses not to use this model will be able to stick with existing arrangements. This optional model will simplify negotiations between resource companies and First Nations so that we don't have to waste years and years and years on new negotiations, reinventing the wheel every single time there's a new proposal. It will create a simple model that allows the business to pay tax directly to the First Nations and receive a 50% refundable tax credit to do it. I want to thank you for the 50-cent handshake. It's interesting that the tax credit that you designed, Chief Jules, is a 50% tax credit. So 50 cents of every dollar paid will go directly to the First Nation government under your arrangement, which we have accepted. This will not preclude any community from continuing to use other existing arrangements, such as impact benefit agreements. It does respect the duty to consult found in the Constitution, and it upholds all treaty rights. Putting First Nations back in control of their money and letting them bring home the benefits of resource development will get faster buy-in for good projects to go ahead. In other words, more earnings for grassroots First Nations communities, not Ottawa gatekeepers. Those earnings will mean paychecks, schools, clean water, hospitals, and other wonderful opportunities. Only common-sense Conservatives will fight for real economic reconciliation by supporting First Nations taking back control of their money and their lives. In conclusion, I want to thank the many leaders around this table and honor the thousands and thousands of years of ancestral history that you bring to this table. It has been said that there is a contract between the dead, the living, and the yet-to-be-born, those that were, those that are, and those that will be. No Canadian can match the incredible longevity of the ancestral and cultural traditions that all of you bring to this table. I can only trace my ancestry back a few generations. You can trace it back thousands of years. And today you are bringing that, those many millennia of accumulated wisdom to this table. I believe that you have all the wisdom to make your own decisions and to run your own lives. I am but your humble servant, and I am honored to be here to serve with you today. Miigwech.